I'm Dr. Miller. I'm the Associate Chair for the Department of Chemistry, and I teach organic chemistry as my discipline. For water quality, I volunteered to take over from Gary Michaels almost 3 years ago now. In fact, I'm going to do my third trip coming up in just a few weeks. But I am the faculty coordinator for that, and so we sort of bring in some students, anywhere from 8 to about 12 students, and I mentor them, and we travel the country in the Dominican Republic. It gives students the ability to sort of step outside their normal environment in school. They get to use some of what they've been taught, you know, either their own discipline, psychologists, we have chemists, we have biologists, so it allows students to sort of grow sort of into themselves and maybe outside of their discipline a little bit, and also to meet new cultures, new people, you know, interact with people that would normally not sort of run across in their everyday life, and also travel. And so it's a pretty exciting sort of experience going to another country and learning how to sort of fit in to their norms and their culture, and still sort of stay true to yours. Geez, so much. Okay, they just practically speaking, they learn how to interact with people. They learn or have exposed to a different language. They learn. Some of them learn science that maybe they have never done science before. I think they learn how to work within themselves and within a group. We reflect a lot, so we think about what we're doing in different ways and how we're affecting people. I think that's the most important part, and actually how we're helping people. The idea of going to the capital, Santo Domingo, was to get some of the cultural aspects of it that we wouldn't have gotten from Santiago. So that was the idea. We got to see the colonial district, for example. We got to really try to give us a sense of how the Dominicans think about the world, so that maybe we can sort of match ourselves better to their expectations, is the idea. And the scavenger hunt was really just for you guys, because I know you're nervous at the point, right? You're a little scared, you're in a different country. So we just send you loose, right? And go out and find things. And in Santiago, you got to go to the monument, right? You got to go to some restaurants. We sent you to some grocery stores. So you really get to maybe experience life at a level that's a little different from the ILAC compound. So students learn how to collect samples. We learn how to plate colonies. We count colonies. We compare those to sort of the norm, and so we can tell the purity of water, at least relative to the pathogens that are in these. We use techniques, sterile techniques, and so students who may, for example, a journalist or a psychologist, who may not run across these sort of these laboratory methodologies, are now exposed to something, and now they have maybe a better idea of what other people are doing in their fields and have a respect for it. Well, with the plantains, you learned the history, for example, the Haitians being brought over with the sugar canes, and now they're also being brought over and used to harvest. Were they plantains or bananas? Yeah. And then with the peppers, you learn that here is sort of these enterprising Dominicans who are sort of meeting the market niche, right? That there's a demand in Florida for these peppers, in Texas, and so they're growing these really cool sort of items, and they're putting them in these large tents. And so here we have you know, capitalism at its best, and then on the other side, some of the capitalism at its worst, right? Sort of you get the history of the exploitation of some of these workers, and then you have over here on the other side with the gardens that we visited, some of the best parts of capitalism, where they're raising up the economic situation because of the ability to sort of plug in to the necessary, or at least the perceived marketplaces for Florida and things like that. So it's sort of a nice contrast. I really like visiting the different agricultural zones, if you will. first, to be honest, I thought, no, let's just do the lab stuff, go out and collect water samples. But, going to the botanical gardens, going to the museum, going to the art museum, as well as the museum for the Three Sisters, going to the economic zones. I mean, you've learned so much. We learned about economics, we learned about art, we learned about plants. I mean, we really get a good sense of the country by doing this, rather than just coming in surgically and doing some type of science project. There's daily reflections, but if you're talking about like the group reflections where we come together, I really like the last one. I did like the Camp David one, because then we got to relax a little bit and come all together. But I think the last, when we got to the beach, and we're really able to think about the whole experience and how it fits into our lives and our responses to it, hearing what the students felt about these responses, about the trip, that was most meaningful for me as a mentor and as a teacher, to sort of hear a student sort of take on the whole package. I think it was wonderful. I think getting better at stepping back. The first year I tried to sort of, be a little bit more hands-on, but you guys are adults and you can take care of yourselves. And I think that the second group really bonded together and really come together in a very meaningful way, both in the work environment when we're going out, long days, long trips, but also when we went and celebrated or when we went and did reflections. I think the group really came together. From my perspective, and I think maybe from the students' perspective, is to see how similar we are. We have an idea about what a culture is, and we also almost always fixate on how they're different. And so we have an idea of how the Dominicans live. They may live differently, but once you start going into the different communities, you actually see how close we are to each other, how much we value the same things. Even people who look very different from yourselves, how really, we're just sort of one world. And I think that's probably the most important aspect of it. Sort of celebrating things, not only our diversity, but how close we really are. And in a way, not as diverse as you would expect, going into these very different economic situations, very different culture, what they value. We seem to value the same things. I think the students benefited from seeing that.